friend. The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from beneath 4 million cubic feet of solid granite, in the burning heart of the Yellowstone caldera. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. So, keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground, as Sumo and Smokestack connect your main brain vein to a higher plane. Are you ready? Stand by.
Morning. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. I was playing a little anime music because tonight is the Rightwing podcast show, and it just goes together.
Oh, we're Rightwing now?
We're Rightwing tonight. We're going to talk about our Rightwing text. So I thought I'd play some anime music.
That'll be fun. I've always wanted to be Rightwing.
Yeah, that was. I forget the names of. They're both. They're the. It's one of them's the Hill of Wind, and the other's the Path of Wind.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're both from My Neighbor Totoro, but I don't remember quite which one is which. Which has the Miyazaki films all have great music, excellent scores. I don't know. You're playing on the anime guy though.
I've seen a couple of the big ones, but I can't even tell you what they are now. It's been so long.
Right. Well, I mean, everyone is Studio Ghibli, or I say Ghibli, and everyone gets mad at me because I don't pronounce it right. But it looks like Ghibli, so I say Ghibli. They're of course My Neighbor Totoro, and then Spirited Away, and people argue about which is better.
Yeah.
I think it's clearly Spirited Away.
That's the one I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, as a close second, but yeah. So some anime music. I've been working on these two. I need input from the listeners about some lyrics, because I got there's this little tune. But see, I don't really. And then you would transition to.
Are you crowdsourcing a song here?
Yeah, I am. I want some. I can't think of any. I can't like that. That has a good feel to this. Like I like how that sounds, but I can't really think of it. You know, when you start writing the words to a song, it's more difficult for me if you come up with melody first. Mm-hmm. I find it a lot easier, but this melody I just have. I don't know the words, but I can't figure out like what. It sort of sounds like it's a song full of nostalgia, maybe, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, so we should lay it down. Let's lay it down on tape. You know, play it straight through, and then we'll do a little contest and see which listener can come up with the best lyrics.
Yeah, and then this one too. Just listeners, just this is a short one. So. I don't know what to go with that. I both like how they both sound, but I don't know the words to go with them. Maybe they don't have words. Maybe they're just not wordless, like the hill of the wind and the path of the wind.
Be a pretty lame contest.
Would be a lame contest. I find if you're good at this is the thing. People think that if they're good at poetry, they're good at lyrics.
Nah. Totally different.
But they are different. They have overlapping disciplines, but I've known many poets that cannot write a tune. Just cannot put it to music. And I think it's because poetry works by trying to cram in more meaning into small amounts of words.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in song lyrics, you know, the devil's in the detail. The specificity is the soul of narrative. That goes with songwriting, and also if you're writing a story, you know, instead of just saying, I felt sad, or my heart ached, you would say something like, and I remembered how you dropped me off in the pouring rain by the Wendy's. You know, you be very specific. Specificity is the soul of narrative, you know, because just saying a general feeling, but then you say, instead of that, you say the exact thing that arises that feeling, and that's how you. But poets have difficulty with that. I don't know. And I'm not a poet. I mean, I did some haikus before, but that's about the extent of my poetry.
Well, nobody's perfect.
I know. I wish poetry would come back. I think poetry is both the highest art form, but also it's also the lowest because it's the easiest to do. It requires no skill to do it requires some skill to do like a decent drawing. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But it requires no skill to write just a diarrhea on paper poem.
Mm-hmm.
And school children all around the world are taught to do that. But then it requires like a master stroke of genius to do like a piece of epic poetry. So it encases the full spectrum.
I'm not sure there's room in the universe at the same time for good poetry and television.
I wonder that too. I think all the poets have died, you know? The poets are no more. You have to be a certain type of society to appreciate it.
True. Yeah.
You know, I mean, we have Paradise Lost and no one reads it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And what do you make of that? So, I don't know. It's a worthy goal is to write lyrics or become a poet, but can you guess? I'm going to read a passage for you, and I want you to tell me if you know the book that it's from.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Fire away.
I'm not going to do the voice because I can't do the voice. I was roused from my slumber by my frog friends, and I declare to you with great boldness that I am here to save you from a great ugliness. If you look around eyes of some people, you see a kind of demented energy. It's pure anger or lust for power, with nothing more. I hate to dirty these pages with mention of names of nobodies in our time, but if you see photo of Hillary Clinton or Adam Schiff with eyes bugged out on stems and antidepressants, or who knows what, you know what I mean. There is a crease around the eye that tells it. It looks like cyborg gone off script. These people have an inhuman gaze and are vehicles for something else. You see this also in chiefs of EU bureaucracy with tiny mole man eyes behind small glasses and the tiny lenses that reflect light. You see it in dead robot eyes of the new human automatons running government departments, the DMV, the brutal zombies running the security in airports or hospitals, healthcare rooms under vicious yellow fluorescent lights. I wanted to expose the grim shadow of a movement that is hidden behind events of our time and from before. There is great power that acts like ghost. It hides in its own darkness, and it has been absorbed by lands and the people so that you can't really even see it anymore. There is just an eldritch quality embedded in the things on some faces. The same was said of Hades. Some said he would feel a great shame when some other god drew back the veil of the underworld so all the vile things that are there could be seen. Is Hades of our time capable of shame? I have also heard of such things being under the sea, the disgusting and frightful things revealed when the sea recedes before a great storm. I will draw back the curtain on this iron prison and show you where it is you really live. Dun, dun, dun.
Would that be Bronze Age mindset?
It is correct. Good job. I thought we should talk about Bronze Age mindset. Have you read Bronze Age Mindset by Bronze Age Pervert?
Indeed, I have. Yes.
It's a good book. It's an interesting book.
It's a doozy. There's a lot in there.
It's a doozy of a book. I mean, he says at the beginning, this is not book of philosophy. This is exhortation. But there's some decent, interesting philosophy in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you gotta underpromise and overdeliver.
It's.
I think he does that well.
Look at that wisdom. Underpromise, overdeliver.
Yep.
I think that's what we do on this show. Maybe. Do we?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't promise much.
No.
We promise nothing. And so if we deliver anything, we succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
And today is a night show. I had to say evening. I said morning reflexively. But if you noticed, listen, I have no sniffles. It's because it's a nighttime show and I haven't just woken up.
That's great.
I know. It's going to sound better. And we were gonna do a normal time show, but you had to slaughter 120 chickens, you said.
Yeah, it ended up being less chickens than that. I may have overstated.
How many chickens did you have to kill?
I pulled the guts out of 50 chickens today.
And how long did that take you? How long is? I've never done a mass chicken slaughtering.
From setup to teardown, I think it was about 6 hours.
That's a lot.
You know,
you would think they would be not that time consuming. They're not very big animals.
You gotta drain them. You have to scald them. You have to pluck them. There's lots of steps in the butchering and evisceration. Then you have to chill them down. Then you have to clean them. Then you have to bag them and shrink wrap them and get them on ice. And there's all that equipment to tear down and put back away. So
you're making a very good case for factory farming right now.
It ends up, but it was really cool. We did it out in a field, beautiful scenery, pond, ducks on the pond, nice breeze. We finished just as a afternoon shower rolled in. It was a very nice day. Yeah.
Yeah, people say factory farming bad, and it is, but then if you don't want that, the alternative is you have to really do some work.
Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Which people are not willing to do. People are not, they don't want to do all that.
Yeah, I was whooped when we were done. We were done with that. My hand hurts from the repetitive motion of reaching into a cavity and ripping out all the guts.
My hand hurts from all the violence.
Yeah. But it was actually really, despite all the guts, it was very peaceful sort of day. It was very nice.
Yeah, my grandfather used to clean catfish in an interesting way. I'm not sure what the standard way of cleaning catfish is. Mm-hmm. I've only seen the people I know do it. And I think it's one of those things that's regional. You learn from your grandfather who learned from his grandfather. And he would just sort of open their mouth and reach in as deep as he could and just make a fist and pull out whatever came out. And just,
How did he get the skin off? That's the hard part on the catfish.
A spoon, I think, if I remember correctly.
A spoon? Okay.
Or maybe that's bass. I know that he would use a spoon but catfish don't have scales. I think a spoon is for a scale fish.
Yeah, you got to skin them, and their skin is just very firmly attached to the rest of them. I just
have a memory of him reaching into the catfish and just making a big fist and pulling out whatever came out, and just doing that 2 or 3 times. And that's how you would hollow out the inside of a catfish.
Did he have the board with the nail on it where you slam the catfish down over the nail head? And
yeah,
use
I
that
also
to...
remember either, I think it was him, or it may have been some other relative while they were cleaning catfish, slicing their thumb very deeply on the catfish fin.
Yeah, those things will get you bad. They bite back. Yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that's the standard way of cleaning catfish.
I don't know that there is a standard way.
I don't think there. I think you just get the stuff off.
Yeah.
You just get the stuff. It's sort of like deer. There's a big thing. People are like, a lot of the old timers, if you kill a deer, they say they wanna like cut an artery and hang them upside down and drain the blood out.
Yeah.
And then the new timers like, that's not necessary. You can just.
Yeah, I think you gotta drain them.
That's what I thought too, but I've heard people that are very good hunters, and they're like, "No, if you just do this and this, bada ba, then you don't have to." And I don't remember what this and this and bada ba was, but I don't know. Like my skills at tanning and hiding and skinning animals is not where it should be. Honestly, I gotta get my XP up in that. But are you planning on slaughtering any other types of species?
Well, we do Chicken Day about 3 times a year, so we'll do another one in the fall. And then I'm gonna try to talk my way into some turkeys. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's just gonna be like a bigger chicken, I imagine.
Yeah.
So it won't be that much different.
It's been a while since I've done anything not poultry or fish related.
I'd like to do an emu. Just to, I told you before I grew up in the emu craze, in a localized emu craze.
Yeah.
When everyone, for some reason, decided they would farm emu. And like people not far from me their backyard would have a high fence with emu in it. And then sometimes a storm would come and knock down the fence, and there'd just be emu running around in the woods where they weren't supposed to be. And that was an issue. But I imagine that emu jerky was big. So someone out there...
That's pretty good. I mean...
Someone out there has experience doing the same thing to an emu, which is like a very big chicken. Very big, very angry chicken. Trying... Do you think you just grab the neck of an emu and cut it off? Like with a scimitar?
Yeah, I mean, the step one is usually sever the artery in the neck.
Yeah.
You know.
But see, if you do that with an emu and the other emus see you, they're large enough to fight back.
Yeah.
And so it may be a problem.
Well, you have to prepare to defend yourself.
And you were telling me also, I want to talk about that because you saw a gnome.
I think I did. I did actually see it.
Now, I don't. So I woke up the other day and people are going to think, oh, he's making this up for show content. But no. This is a standard thing, listener. There's a saying in the paranormal community. It goes like this. When you begin to look at the phenomena looks back. Think about that. Again, we tend to say, those of us that have been around for a while, say the phenomena, because a lot of us are increasingly convinced that it's all sort of aspects of the same thing. But, it's like people silo off the UFOs over here and the Bigfoot over there and the ghost over here, and never the three shall meet. But if you actually don't like weird wash stuff and try to make it sanitized and like compartmentalized, a lot of UFO reports involve Bigfoot. A lot of Bigfoot have UFOs. Everything's got lights in the sky. How's a light in the sky different from a light in the attic? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. I get you.
A Bigfoot thumping on a log. Is that just a poltergeist? If in a house, a poltergeist thumping on a board would be the same thing, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe it's all I say. But when you start looking into it, it looks back at you. And so I got up and I had from a smokestack, and it included a like maybe an MS Paint drawing.
Yeah, I just sketched it out on my phone real quick to illustrate what I saw.
And it was like a little kobold-y looking creature. And you said, I went out last night to do something at the chickens, and this little thing just sprinted by. And all I could think that would be a natural explanation would be an owl.
A baby owl.
But you said you didn't think that was it.
Well, the first thing that popped into my brain was that's a gnome.
Interesting.
It even moved with like a little person-like quality. I mean, it moved. Like I almost expected to hear it giggling as it ran across my path. And I had it caught in the flashlight beam. I got a good look at it, although brief. and it was about 8 inches tall. And it was just like a little squatty little bipedal thing, pale whitish in color all over, scurrying across in this happy little trot just right across my path and around the corner of my house, and I couldn't track him past that. But yeah, it looked like he might be giggling, skipping along with a bag of stolen candy or something.
So you were there and you saw a thing. What time of day was this?
This is probably about 9 o'clock at night.
So it's dark.
Yeah, I was going out to make sure all the chickens were in bed.
And it's fully dark at this point.
Yes, and I had a flashlight. It's pretty dark out at my place.
You have a flashlight.
Yeah, I'm walking out with a flashlight.
Okay. And you catch it in the beam of the flashlight.
Yeah, I make a habit of when I go out there, because there's animals all over the place, I make a habit of just sweeping the beam around and looking around me. And, you see things. But in this case, I saw what appeared to be a gnome running across my sidewalk.
And you saw gnome, and then you said, now, do you think this could have been influenced by the fact that we just did a show about pygmies?
Well, I mean, it was only like 8 inches tall, and he didn't have like any sort of weapon.
Yeah, but he appeared to move with a bipedal thing.
I mean, yeah, it was an upright thing walking on its hind legs.
So the only thing that could be in nature that I can think of also would be a small owl.
Yeah, I mean, baby owls
that for some reason refuse to fly.
Right, but it how an owl, when it's walking, sort of waddles because it doesn't have
correct
good knee action. But this thing ran like a little tiny something that is built to run, not built to fly, I guess.
Okay, now are you disturbed by having gnomes in your garden?
No, it didn't really bother. I mean, I thought it was kind of cool. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what I saw, but it was sort of fun. I told my kids that maybe I saw a gnome.
Honestly, of all the paranormal, I would be more comfortable having a Bigfoot in my backyard than a gnome.
Really? What's the big deal?
Little tiny things, because they'll sneak in and they'll do like little tiny things. Like, think about it this way. What would be more dangerous than 8-inch tall people?
But what if he's nice? What if he does nice things for my family?
Sure, maybe. Yeah. Like makes shoes when you're asleep.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
It works on your cobbling.
Weeds my garden.
Maybe you have a... But if you had an army, if you had a secret service, a secret special forces of 8-inch tall men who could just hide in the grasses, and then they crawl into your space and they just stab you in your neck when you're asleep with some like long thing, it'd be terrifying.
But I like to believe the best about people until proven otherwise. So if the gnome army of my yard is out there listening to the show. I don't have any ill will. I hope we can get along.
Yeah, I don't. I have no opinion on the existence of gnomes. A lot of people would say that they don't believe in them. I don't disbelieve in them or believe in them. I don't know.
I'll put my sketch up on the show notes page at mapsoc.org.
Yeah. Now, how much time passed between seeing the gnome and sketching the gnome? Because that matters.
Maybe
like if you did it
5 minutes.
Okay, so fresh in your mind.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, Smokestack is actually much more of a magnet for the paranormal than I am. As I said, I have my one big UFO thing, and then really the rest of my life things just sort of ignore me. Like if I'm ever on a ghost hunt, the ghost will not come. I don't know why. They just don't. I just don't intrigue them, or I scare them away, or something. I have negative psychic energy, maybe. But on the reverse, Smokestack is sort of like a magnet.
It's funny. If you were to just say that right off the rip, I would disagree. But I was adding them up in my head. I've had an out-of-body near-death experience. I've seen 2 UFOs, and now a gnome.
Yeah, and this is how they come. Very few people have just one experience. A lot of people, you have 0 or you have many. And it seems to be tied to the sort of person, the sort of psyche that, like some people just have eyes to see is all I can figure. And other people will get lucky and maybe see one thing in their life like I did. But other people are just, the spirits reveal themselves into some, maybe in a different life, in another timeline, you would have been like the village shaman.
That explains my penchant for herbalism.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, you would have been, if this were 1200 AD and we were in the Amazon, you would be mixing up ayahuasca.
Yeah, I'm not down with psychedelics. I don't know.
I know, but that's only because if you were to an Amazonian Indian, that's just like singing Amazing Grace.
Well, I mean, the good news is civilization can't be far from collapsing, so we're gonna all have new exciting jobs.
Yeah, new exciting jobs. I will still be paranormal podcaster even without the electricity.
Sweet.
We're just gonna make it work. But so there was the gnomes, the chickens. We're gonna talk about Bronze Age mindset, but first I want to talk about the recent hacker nonsense that's not true.
Oh man, this is the biggest load.
This is sort of your sort of thing where you know about stuff. Like you, this is your sort of conspiracy.
I do like these sort of things.
Yeah, this is your sort of conspiracy. And this was so the dark side hacker, the FBI, everyone remembers the Colonial Pipeline not long ago.
Oh yeah.
Getting quote unquote hacked. And then they were like, at the time, it was like a ransomware attack. It's Russian hackers. Scary. Russians. Ooh. How do we know this? Hackers stop using VPNs? I guess so. You'd think that if they were this good, they would hiding behind at least several layers of proxies. But whatever. And the hacking group happens to call themselves Dark Side.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, which no one's ever heard of before and has a comic book villain name, as Ramsey Paul said. They may as well call themselves the Evil Legion of Evil. We're a Dark Side, the Russian hackers. And so the Colonial Pipeline was hacked, and they contacted the Now, importantly, the hack did nothing whatsoever to affect the flow of gas.
No, it didn't.
It did nothing.
The accounting office.
Yeah, people are like, oh, they should. No, they didn't. They did. Like, I looked into this. And I was thinking this at the time. I was like, but there are wrenches.
Yeah.
Like, if this is computer controlled, just get a guy out there with a wrench and open whatever valve, right? And I thought that doesn't make sense. And it turns out I was right. I was vindicated, as is usually the case when they tried out some nonsense story. They said, well, the accounting office actually got hacked, and we were afraid. And he says, and then I have the quote here. He says, a little more than 1 week later, on May 7th, an employee at Colonial's control room saw a ransom note demanding cryptocurrency appear on a computer just before 5 a.m. The employee notified an operations supervisor, here's the money, who immediately began to start the process of shutting down the pipeline. Colonial Chief Executive Officer Joseph Blunt said in an interview by 6:10 a.m. the entire pipeline had been shut down. They shut down the pipeline of their own accord.
Yep.
There was nothing. There was zero that happened that made the pipeline. They were afraid, in their own words, we wouldn't know how to bill for it. So, rather than just, I don't know, letting the gas flow and just asking people, listen, this is basically we have the same customers every time.
Yep.
It's not like Joe Smith down the road goes to the gas facility and just gets a semi truck and pumps it.
Right. All they're doing is loading trucks. I've been to these terminals like this.
Yeah.
All they're doing is loading trucks. Literally all you would have to do is make copies of the bill of lading that the trucker brought, and you could add it up later. Like, this could have been done entirely manually. There was never any reason for any of this to shut down.
Or just say, look, you all basically buy the same amount of gas every day. Like, I'm sure that if you average it out week by week basis, there's probably a seasonal variation, or whatever.
Yeah.
But someone has the data on how much gas you buy, and just say, look, this is This is what you bought. Just pay us this.
Yeah.
And people would have understood. I bet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll just pay you basically what we paid you last week.
Well, just for our listeners' edification, if you don't know, the way the pipeline works is there's a series of terminals, like big storage tank farms, up from Houston all the way up to New York, and they're on a line and they're connected by pipelines. So gasoline comes out of the refineries in the Gulf. It gets pushed up the line, and that keeps these tank farms full in these major cities from all the way up the eastern part of the country. And then trucks go in, and they pick up the gas, and they take it to the gas station. And so these distribution companies are buying the gas from the oil companies who put it in. So they basically act as like a clearinghouse for the refineries to sell their gas up and down the East Coast. And so they keep records of how much gas went into the system from the refineries and how much gas was taken out of the terminals by whom. And then they use the pipeline to balance the inventory levels.
Yeah.
All of this, every bit of it has paper records. Especially
all of it.
There was I'm involved with this stuff professionally. There was no reason for any of this to be shut down. It was a giant dog and pony show. And then when the CEO came out and said, "Well, we didn't want to operate it manually because the guys that knew how to do that left. They've all retired, or we didn't have enough guys that know how to operate it manually, and we didn't want to use the computers." I don't even believe that, because one thing that they did manage to do was to take the gas that was in the tank farms in the mid-Atlantic, turn on the pipeline and pump that all up to Baltimore to keep DC fueled. And the mid-Atlantic states got hosed by DC. Yeah. So they managed to get that part of the pipeline working to do that. But then the rest of it's got to stay shut down because of Russian hackers. Forget about it.
Yeah. And it's like, if you're it's like, it's a pipeline. Yeah. It's not super, we've had pipelines forever. I could figure it out in like 10 minutes, I bet.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we need gas to go here. I bet if we open this valve, it will begin to flow there.
Yeah.
And you could just go turn. You probably don't even need a wrench. You probably just need a key to unlock some bolt, and then you just turn a big wheel.
It isn't complicated. It's just valves and pumps.
It's just valves and pumps.
Yeah.
There was never, like people are like, oh my God, there was no reason at all for the gas to be shut down ever. Mm-hmm. They just, I don't know. Here's a quote from a
reporter.
Wasn't.
Here's the thing. It wasn't shut down. It was never actually shut down. They just didn't load the trucks when they came to the terminal.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that really actually happened, is the trucks showed up to pick up the gas and they said, "No, we're not going to load you."
Yes.
That's what happened.
Right. And so anyway, these people should be tried in court.
Yeah.
For something. Okay. But so anyway, they got ransom attacked in their IT department. Now, this is a problem too, because what are they holding ransom?
Good.
What is
the accounting information, I guess?
The billables?
Do you not, yeah.
Does your company not keep backups?
Yeah,
Most large companies,
of course they do,
have regular snapshots of the data just for something like this, or if the computers catch on fire or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they have regular offsite backups. What are you talking? Like, our password, okay, shut down that computer, put in a new one, and load it. Like, what? I don't know. I don't know why this. I have worked with a company that got ransomwared, or ransom attacked, and they also contacted the FBI, and the FBI also told them, whatever, am I going to pay it? I don't know. That was the FBI came and they said, this is really, I don't know, pay it, I guess. And they did, and they got unlocked. But theirs made sense because they were a healthcare corporation, and they had the hack happened like sort of toward the end of the day before they had and they had a lot of patient records from surgeries and like images they'd taken and x-rays and stuff that were locked and hadn't been backed up. And so you would have to get all the patients back in there, redo the exams or something. And it was a big, you don't want to do that, right?
Right.
You don't want to do extra medical exams or redo them because you lost your thumb drive. So they paid it, right? And they weren't asking for a huge amount. If they had, they probably would have just redone it or something. I don't know. But so they paid. But in this case, there's no like time sensitive data, right? There's no people. It's just billing accounts. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't even make sense why you would have to pay that, first of all. So keep in mind, this is a hacker group, supposedly from Russia, that again, no one's ever heard of before, that calls themselves basically the evil Legion of Evil, the dark side, right? And they do this ransom attack, and they shut it down for no reason, really. They didn't even shut it down. As Smokestack said, it's still pumping. They just didn't load the trucks. Okay, and then they say, well, but we paid the ransom in Bitcoins, and so now we're good, right? Okay, but here's what Darkside said. They were like, listen, I want you to send the money to my Coinbase account. Or something like that. Like, it's not clear exactly what, but they didn't send it to a private wallet, I don't know, in Russia.
Yeah, right.
Or wherever. They sent it to some sort of like crypto exchange, which is like a crypto bank, right? But they keep the funds for you.
And they have a copy of your driver's license.
And they have a copy of your driver and who you are.
Yeah.
And they said, listen, I mean, like Ramsey Paul said, it would be like me saying, like, okay, I'm holding you hostage and like, okay, I'm going to give you the ransom money. It's like, okay, where did I say that? I was like, okay. And I've been anonymous this whole time and using a voice chain like, okay, right. You're going to send the money. Send $1 million. Okay. Send $1 million to routing number 235. And then, and my name is Bill Smithers. And it's like, what? All of your previous anonymity just threw it away. And again, for people that aren't familiar with Bitcoin, there's no reason to do that. It's just the same address. It's the same exact process, sending it to a Coinbase account or a private wallet that would be untraceable. Like,
yeah.
And then, so the FBI says, right. So we figured out with our special FBI skills.
Meaning they called Coinbase.
They called Coinbase
Yeah.
and they said, hey, let's get that. We need that money back.
Right.
And Coinbase said, okay. And they just sent it back. And then they were like, we hacked the Bitcoin back. So every single part of this story is nonsense.
Yeah.
It's all a bit, again, I know I hate to repeat myself, but it is fake and probably gay.
Yep. Everyone
Everyone involved is probably just having a wild orgy behind a dumpster of an Arby's.
Yep.
Or something. It is so stupid. And listen, the FBI, CIA, I won't, you, by now you've been listening, you know that we're pretty good at spotting nonsense, okay? I'm not going to lie for you, but if you want me to spot nonsense coming out of other countries, because listen, this is really bad. This doesn't make any sense, guys.
It's embarrassing.
You got to up your game, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying. If you need someone to help you write better scripts, maybe, here's how you contact me. I want you to leave an orange envelope in my mailbox, right? And that will be a clue. And then I will go stand on the nearest hill at midnight of the next day. And then we will meet.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
But that's how we will meet. But and I can because this is just amateur hour, guys.
Right.
And I know you've had a lot going on.
Whoever was releasing the commentary from the FBI knows as much about Bitcoin as my 6-year-old.
I know.
Yeah.
And so listen, guys, I know you have a lot going on. You've been manufacturing COVID crises. You've been
running regime change operations in America.
Yeah, you've been pretending that we're fighting the Taliban while we actually fund them for heroin.
Yep.
You've been helping Xi Jinping on the side. I understand all these things. Like, I know you're busy, and you probably just didn't have, just if you need a few extra hands, just orange envelope, because this is not a good look. It's not a good look. It makes us look like China's looking at this and going, "Is this the best they got?" Right. And I know you probably work with China. I know that, but you wanna upstage. You don't want to, in the secret club, you don't want to be like the dummies, right? If you want to look good for the Chinese intelligence agencies that you help.
If you're gonna be their dog, at least be like a rad German Shepherd. Don't be like a
dachshund
that just rolls over and wants you to rub his tummy.
Yeah.
Come on,
so,
guys.
I mean, I'm not even mad about it. CIA, this is just, it's just, I'm disappointed. I'm just disappointed. This is not a good, I mean, at least with like the Twin Towers, you put in some effort.
Yeah.
It was a little sloppy when you said, "Oh, we just found the terrorist passport that blew up in that plane just a second ago, pristine on the ground."
Yeah.
Here it is. Strangely, it's not destroyed at all, even though it just literally flew into a giant building in a molten hell of jet fuel.
Yeah, it's in great shape. Funny
but we found it. Look, it's fine. I know that every magic trick you have to have a little just because. I get it, but this is not.
Mm-hmm.
Have people retired recently? Is this the problem? Have you had too many? Do you have too many women and you've had too many people out breastfeeding? I don't know. Just maybe the lady that's really good at writing the scripts is out breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And she couldn't come up with something, and they just did this. They had an intern,
mm-hmm.
and they were like, "Dark side." They sent it to Coinbase, and boo. So anyway, why would they make up this story? This is the question. Like, but why do it? Like, is it? I came up with a couple answers. Is it trying to cast doubt on Bitcoin? Maybe. Right? Maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, maybe they don't want. Maybe they're using this. This will be part of a future justification to crack down on Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
They're loading up the environmentalism angle.
Yep.
They had Elon Musk. They told Elon Musk, "Look, talk bad about Bitcoin, or we're not going to give you space money." And he said, "Okay." And then they had Elizabeth Warren get up there and go, "Murmur environment, Bitcoin, woo." Right? She did that, and so they're lining up that angle. And maybe now this is also part of it, like, and it's used by Russians and hackers, and criminals and money laundering. Maybe that could be. That's a very sound. Maybe that's what it is. Did they make it up just to cover the state-sponsored shutdown of the pipeline? I mean, isn't it a bit weird that this also happened with the meat shortage and the lumber shortage? It's funny how all the things the left hates are also the things being taken down by cybercrime.
Well, if you look at the price patterns on a lot of these things, you have this weird happening, and the price spikes, and then the happening is over, and the price drops back down, but it doesn't drop back down to where it was before.
Right.
It settles higher than it was before because it's like we have to. They're trying to hide the inflation, so they're like, well, we'll just go industry by industry and have these crises with convenient explanations, but then we'll build in the inflation, and that's how you make you let all these things ratchet up because we got to pay for everything we did over the last year.
And this is why I sort of feel sympathy, because I on some level I think maybe the CIA and the FBI are like, listen, America we're strung out on debt.
Yeah.
Everyone is overdrawn. Every citizen in America, we have to do austerity in some way, but we need to give people a reason to feel like it's okay. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's all they're doing. Maybe they're not that bad. I don't know. Look, I'm not accusing you guys. I just want you to have better scripts. Like, it shouldn't be people are beginning to see it,
Yeah.
And we could just send me the orange envelope. I won't work for super cheap, but I'm not gonna ask for a ton. You know. Anyway, did they shut it down themselves? Just as you said, to justify gas prices, like, you know, and then it goes up and then it comes down. It's like, okay, now gas prices are. Is this just a weird form of like crypto secret service economic policy?
Well, there was probably a number of goals. One of them was to introduce motivations for crypto regulation and the eventual state monopoly on cryptocurrency. So there's going to be a digital U.S. dollar, and that's going to be the only form of crypto we're allowed to use. At least that's part of the plan. Also, yes, I think they're trying to hide inflation. But then thirdly, I think they realize that the COVID thing has run out of road, and they're trying to wind it down. And the best way to do it is to palate cleanse with a series of successive crises.
Yeah, I mean, guys, this is CIA advice show. I'm not sure. Is that really necessary? Like, can't we have if we need a palate cleanser, I think you need to do something more exotic. Like, maybe claim some weird foreign object just splashed in the ocean. And, like, it could be just.
Well, they're doing the UFO stuff.
I know. They're not doing it very well. No. Again.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, whatever. I imagine the disappointment on the guy at Langley's face. And he's like, this is going to be great. We're going to roll out the UFO. And he rolls out the UFO story and everyone's like, meh.
Yeah. Well, there's a kayfabe type agreement going on here where the public wants to forget about COVID and they're willing to accept very lame distractions to make that happen that aren't really that good. But it's like, okay, I'll take whatever I can get as long as I can quit thinking about COVID. Yeah. And I don't have to look the big lie in the face. I can just walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe, like I said, maybe the CIA is not so bad. Maybe this is what American public needs. Maybe the American public is so degenerate. They just need this sort of handler.
Well, I don't know. We get the government we deserve.
Yeah. Which is I guess reptilians.
Yeah.
But anyway, Elon Musk, again, he came out, before this, he was like, bad for the environment, which, again, not true. I mean, the electricity used by Bitcoin it's not worse than the electricity used to move all the other financial transactions around.
Yep.
I mean, has anyone calculated how much electricity PayPal or Venmo use? Mm. It's not a little bit. And most of the Bitcoin in the world is quote unquote green or renewable. Because otherwise it's just not profitable for people to do.
Yeah. Unless
you like have geothermal or hydroelectric. And Elon knows this. He's not a dummy. He also knows that all the Bitcoin mining in the world is basically the equivalent of the electricity of, say, Las Vegas. It's not a huge deal. And he knows this. He's not a dummy. And then and then he goes, but instead buy Dogecoin, which is a stupid thing. Mm-hmm. Like, first of all, Bitcoin also used to have the same energy profile as Dogecoin back when it was not used by anybody.
Right.
If Dogecoin got big, and who knows, maybe it will, which would be what we deserve, really. I mean, I hope that the future is America's currency, official currency is Dogecoin. And Caitlyn Jenner is the president with The Rock as vice president. And that will be what we deserve.
Yeah, it really would.
And maybe Jack Black is the Speaker of the House. He's like, woo, or whatever.
I'd tune in.
Yeah, I mean, it would be what we need. But, so Elon knows this, right? And he still does it anyway because Tesla makes no money. And none of his companies make any money. And yet he's one of the richest men in the world because everything is fake. Because Tesla makes money because it gets green credits that it then uses. It's this weird, complicated. But if you look up how Tesla makes money, it loses money on every single car. SpaceX has never made a dime because who's buying rocket ships? not many people. And none of his companies have ever made anything. It's just that he gets credits from the government on this green system. And they're like, listen, if you want those credits to keep coming, you better play this game. And he's like, fine. I will pump Dogecoin and I will name my kids some numbers. Get off my back. And they're like, okay, AE7837 is good. We won't, require the blood sacrifice of your child like we did for other people. Like, I don't know, use your imagination. It's just a little weird. Look in, my friends, to how many people that are prominent businessmen and or politicians have lost children at some point, and it's a lot more than the general population. I'm just saying.
We should do a show on that.
Yeah, I don't like to get into kids being killed conspiracies. Yeah. It's very dark.
Yeah.
But just look around at how many successful celebrities, like weirdly successful, like they're not that good, and also politicians and stuff, like most people, thank God, do not have to deal with losing a child in this day and age.
Yeah.
It's thankfully, thank heavens that is rare, right? But it is not as rare when you get up into the upper echelons of stuff, and I wonder why sometimes. I don't know. I'm just saying, look into it. If you feel so compelled. I don't blame you if you don't, because it's dark. But and also Trump was like coming out like Bitcoin bad, from his typewriter or whatever he's using these days. He's like, Bitcoin bad. Elizabeth Warren. Type. And then maybe the timing is suspicious because El Salvador is making Bitcoin legal tender, right? And then Putin is like, the U.S. is using the dollar as an economic weapon of war, which it is.
Yeah, he's right.
Which it absolutely is,
Yeah, if you quit pricing your stuff in dollars, you get invaded.
Right. I mean, how long until we attack El Salvador? I suspect there'll be a color revolution in El Salvador very soon.
You think? Well, see, that El Salvador did that because it's most convenient for the cartels.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really just who's running the show there. I mean,
I have sympathy for the cartels.
I mean, they really the CIA and the cartels, but you repeat yourself.
Yeah, I know. The cartels are at least, they're like, hey, they are funded by it's all everything that we claim to fight, we are funding.
Yes,
that's a general rule. So
Al Qaeda in Syria is getting like a makeover, and they're now like our allies. They're the moderate rebel allies of the United States. When they were like chopping people's heads off in the street a couple of years ago. Now we're supposed to support them against the government of Syria.
Yeah, it's like, no, but these other new people are even worse.
Yeah.
It's like Al Qaeda was bad. Now there's ISIS, so we have to help Al Qaeda. And then there'll be something else, like the evil Legion of Islam evil.
Right.
We have to side with ISIS against the evil Legion of Islam evil. And then the evil Legion of Islam evil is going to help us beat the baby murdering Chinaman. Or whatever. It just gets so outlandish. This is why they need better script writers. Anyway. So maybe this is just an extension of the currency wars. I don't know. Everyone in the world is struggling to get free of the US dollar.
No, that's true. Yeah.
The US empire is doing everything it can to keep them on it. And if you try to get off of it, they bayonet you in the butt like Gaddafi. So I don't know. I thought we should talk about that because it was so silly. This whole thing. But Smokestack, what is life? And what really is current problem we are facing?
I don't know.
I'm switching over to bat mode here. What is life? So if you're not aware, we're going to talk about the Bronze Age mindset, which is a book by a plucky little fellow named Bronze Age Pervert, he's been an online troll. What would you call him? An online troll king for a long time.
Yes. Leader of the right-wing bodybuilder community.
Yeah, for over a decade now. He started off on forums and image forums. He got kicked off of Roosh's forum several times. He was in a fight with Thomas 777 because he called Thomas a fake Nazi.
What part of that is the never mind?
I don't know. He was like, "You're a fake Nazi," and Thomas was like, "I'm not even a Nazi." And Bap isn't a Nazi either. He just goes to this extreme rhetoric every time, which is it's sort of humorous in how outlandish it is.
Yes, it is.
But anyway, that being said, Bronze Age Pervert released a book in I think 2018 called Bronze Age Mindset. And it is a very interesting book. It's a way of looking at the world that most people probably have never had. I think that's fair. So I thought we would examine it and see what we can say about it. So, in my opinion, the most interesting part of Bappian philosophy, and I say B-A-P, Bronze Age Pervert, just for short, Bappian philosophy. Although he say at the beginning of the book is no book of philosophy. He says, that's how he leaves off a lot. He said, no book of philosophy. It's all an exhortation. But the first third of the book is, for me, the real meat of the book because it's the rest of it sort of flows from that.
Yes.
The first third of the book presents a way of looking at the world, a worldview, if you will, that's totally alien to what you or I or anyone else since maybe the Bronze Age has been brought up with. So from the outset, okay, Bap is a self-described pagan, or maybe not even that, maybe more of an animist. I think he would dislike and be uncomfortable in all formalized religions, even the pagan ones. And in fact, in many cases, he would hate the pagan religions with great fury, because they were in his words, matriarchal, or concerned with, quote, Earth Mother, or living close to nature, which is a phrase he uses repeatedly in the book with much derision.
Yeah, I think the term pagan just means in this case not of organized religion.
Yes. Yeah, he wouldn't be a Wicca, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't be in the Druids, because they would be like in the Earth Mother, and he would say this is he'd call them like Shiboons or something, and then leave. So Bap begins. He says he begins by answering. He says, "What is life? Like, what is it?" And he begins by attacking first Darwinism and evolution. Not that he doesn't, in a sense, believe in evolution, only that it's misapplied to areas where it should not be. This is, quote, Bap say, quote, "Darwin and his style of thinking would never have made so much impression or ever had such power if it were simply false. Actually, Darwinianism is true, but only under certain conditions. It's not even a half-truth. It's actually the full truth about a kind of life. But the mistake is to think it describes all life. Darwin is meaningless without Malthus. And this is why Nietzsche is right about both of them when he says they describe only life in England, or more precisely only life in England of that time, the beginning of the industrial age." Which I thought was a great insight, because England, is it a coincidence that the theory of evolution comes about when people in England are starting to live like a bacterial yeast colony?
Yep.
They're just living in sludge and filth. The industrial revolution is going. People are packed together. They're in pods, and they're in sweatshops, and they're having babies, and some of them are dying, and some of them are living, and they're just maxing out their food supply. Isn't it a little suspicious that this theory comes from an Englishman of that world?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's taking his social setting and he's then putting it onto the natural world.
Yep.
And so Bap's claim, and I think there's much to it, is that Darwinism seems natural to people today only because we live in exactly that sort of artificial state of affairs.
Yep.
That we've arrived at since the Industrial Revolution. So in other words, the Industrial Revolution removed infant mortality almost totally. And like I said, that's good. But it's today almost all babies who are born live, which is, again, but this has led to a population explosion around the globe, unprecedented in human history, except maybe in Atlantis times. And in Bap's words, has reduced humanity to a state much like yeast, a kind of life where evolutionary theory does apply. And so, like, so yeast has no aims but the continuation of yeast. We've talked about this on our show where we talked about evolution. It exists to, like, if the goal of evolution is simply to reproduce, life would have stopped at yeast. Or because it reproduces the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like, an amoeba will reproduce literally like 1 billion times by the time one human grows up and has one baby. If the goal is to reproduce, you would never, why go beyond that? But life is reaching for something higher, right? And this is, I've asked, no one can ever be like, well, but some species, they have an advantage and it lets them reproduce, and it's like, no, it doesn't. There's no advantage to reproducing slower under this model, right? You just if the goal is just make more, yeast wins.
Yeah. And if you buy evolutionary theory, which I don't, just as an aside,
right.
But if you buy it, the more rates of reproduction over a given period of time gives you more advantage in getting positive mutations or whatever.
Right. You would.
So the most frequent rate of reproduction yields the highest chances of getting a positive mutation, therefore amplifying your advantages, and you grow in your advantage faster than anyone else can. Right.
Yeah. And so if you then well, I had one guy, I was arguing about this with one guy, and he was like, well, you got to look at it like it's just cells. Because like a human being, yes, it does take a long time, but the human being it's actually what's being evolving is all of these cells, right? So you can't look at it as one reproduction in, say, 20 years. It's like however many cells you have. And that is a very interesting twist on the theory of it. It's not what Darwin was talking about.
No,
because he was talking about at species level. Now we're at some weird
if we have to break down the idea of organisms as coherent systems.
Yeah, exactly.
Then your theory doesn't work for the real world.
Right. So, Babb describes this same condition of mass humanity presently as existing in a state of, quote, life for the mere continuation of life versus life for the exaltation of life. So man has degenerated into something closer to the earthworm than the dolphin. Head always lowered to the dirt, nose to the grindstone, as it were, always fretting about money and material needs and scheming to get more, and never lifting his eyes to heaven and reveling in the majesty of the stars or the glories of the sun. In fact, modern people seldom look up at all. You can test this. If you hang out somewhere like in a tree, in a park, no one will ever notice you. I know it sounds a bit weird because I'm talking about I just sit up in trees and watch people, but they never notice you. People don't lift their eyes up. And that's not even metaphor. It's physically, they don't look up anymore. They are pale indoor cats without any sharp claws who lived in cramped, polluted cities where the skies are not even visible at night. And sometimes, like in Beijing, even during the day.
Yeah.
And like bugs, they crawl around in these twisted, chaotic concrete jungles, searching for scraps and ankle biting one another, and just they feel like life in a petri dish, and so they think, oh, this is what life is.
Mm-hmm.
And in such a lifestyle has been the standard for cities of the world throughout time, but especially since the Industrial Revolution, man feels himself to be only existing to exist. Go work, come home, go to sleep. Go to work, come home, go to sleep. Go to work, come home, go to sleep. Go to work, ad infinitum. And they say, what is the point of this? And there is none. They can find none because there isn't one. And then they conclude that that's what life is. It's pointless. This is how all life is, how all life has always been. It only exists for any reason, if you can even call it a reason, is to acquire resources to then reproduce. Now, they never take into account that they themselves do not actually do that. It's so strange how inconsistent it is. It's like, if that's, because these people that believe that that's what life is, then they never actually, most of them don't reproduce at all.
Yeah.
Very few.
Mm-hmm.
And then they somehow think that they are winning. It's like, because I brought this up, I was arguing with my cousin who's a big atheist, and he was like, yeah, all the only purpose is to pass on genes. And I was like, but then why is there no passing on of genes happening? Or why don't we consider the Amish to be winning? Like, why is your theories of life and science say it's correct, but what good is it if you go extinct? Right? Why is what's Wittgenstein said, I'll teach you the truth, but also what's so great about it? Like, okay, let's say your theories are all right. Whoop-de-doo. How is, if an earthworm tomorrow figured out the secrets of the universe, but then he just died away, what good was it?
Yeah.
So, but this, of course, is not true. Bap contrasts this mode of life with that of, say, like a dolphin or the other higher animals who jump joyously out of the sea and they turn flips in the sprays of rainbows lit by the sunshine. So in another passage, he talks about the magnificent freedom of birds. He says, I've seen many things like this myself, was that big waterfall, gathering place of many birds and other animal. Through all cycles of history, this place remains, and birds who witness the coming and going of human civilizations remember it through the aeons and always return there. I saw many groups of small birds when the weather slightly changed. This waterfall so big that a small wind would make spray of water everywhere. Sun came from behind clouds and spread many small rainbows. Birds would become excited, come out from crevasses and rock face, and would glory in the sprays of water and rainbows. They swoop doing acrobatics this way and that. Like when Homer says that on some Asian meadows tribes of geese and crane and long-necked swans glory in the power of their wings above it, and then land between the rivers. In Scandarian plain with a great clang. Is not enough just to say what is purpose of this to survival and reproduction. And so he's saying there, and this is how Bap speaks. Bap has like a persona of like someone that's partly caveman.
Yeah.
And I think he's actually Ivy League educated in the classics. He's capable of perfect English, and also perfect Spanish. But he speaks in this persona of caveman where he leaves out articles and stuff. But what he's saying there is what is the purpose to reproduction and just survival of the dolphin jumping in the waves and the birds flying through the waterfalls or the geese beating their wings gloriously above the plain? Yeah. They're doing something more than just survival.
Right.
And this is a point we made before on this show. Like if all life exists, like I said, but life, capital L, life, is actually striving and straining for something more, something mysterious that we only glimpse through hints and perhaps maybe ecstatic visions or mystical revelations. I mean, my personal sort of Christian idea on that is that life exists to create vessels capable of housing the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like to create beings capable of being wrapped up in the Godhead, right? And Bap gives a hint of like what the course of life is, and he says, this is why Bap is a part of the right-wing bodybuilding community, and this is where this comes from, like why so many in this sphere are into physicality, because he says that what the most obvious tell of what life is after, like what it's searching for, is seen in the beauty of the physical form when it reaches its pinnacle in the proper human physique. And that sort of makes sense. Like if we take seriously, who can take seriously the claims of the Darwinist or the modern urban bugman that the life of a slug is on equal footing with the life of a stallion galloping through the hills?
Yeah.
Right? Like the stallion looks sleek and beautiful and its muscles are rippling. It's like and like the male physique and the female physique in their highest perfection are the most beautiful and symmetrical and harmonious physical forms in the universe. And so the bugman, the urban dweller, the city, is like, humans are bad. And then it's like, but actually, like if you get your act together, like you're like probably the most beautiful thing in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the Greek sculptures or Michelangelo's David,
Yeah, man.
And life is after this. Life is pursuing this. Because the beautiful, the true, and the good are the same. And people get mad about that because they're like, I'm not beautiful, or I'm in a wheelchair. It's like, I know there's things happen and they suck, right? Circumstances are bad. But just, be as beautiful and true and good as you can be.
Right.
And also,
even the people that you think you'll never measure up to are one day going to get old and fall apart.
Correct. And if you live properly with God, then you will be resurrected one day, and all those things will be fine.
Amen.
Just have a longer view. So in any corner of the quote unquote modern world today, you find countless and innumerable instances of this same specimen of what Bap calls the bug man, like a misshapen, often deformed, soft, blubbery around the edges with 3 or 4 chins. At the same time, some species are like thin as skeletons. They look like zombies. I mean, have you seen the health minister of California?
Oh man,
that lady looks like, I assume it's a lady. That lady looks like a actual ghoul.
Yeah.
She looks like
resurrected corpse.
She looks like a resurrected corpse, or those people that have been radiation fried in the video game Fallout.
Yeah.
Hey, you want some caps? And you gotta make sure the social distance for your health. And it's like, are you drinking blood?
Yeah, for real.
What's wrong with you? And so their hair, if they have it, is gelled up into these grotesque shapes and painted all sorts of weird colors. And
yeah.
So these sort of phenotypes, these are the ones most likely to subscribe to the equally ugly and degenerate philosophies and ideologies of our time. Like, one seldom sees an attractive woman who's also a diehard feminist.
Yeah. I
mean, they may mouth the stuff just because they have never thought about it, which is what women do. They don't think about stuff. They'll just... I say it, but I think it's more true for women than it is for men that you are the sum total of like your 5 closest friends.
Okay.
Women will just sort of. It's very seldom to see a group of women where they don't all have basically the same opinions.
Okay.
And are friends. Is that fair? I think that's fair.
I can name a lot of exceptions, but
let's speak generally.
Yeah.
Let's ignore the exceptions. And just look at the data that makes me look like I'm right.
Highly social creatures that seek harmony among each other. So that sort of thing will arise from that.
I mean, there's not as many like you and I in the female community.
Yeah, agree.
Like my wife, when people ask about me, she usually says, well, she has to give them an explanation.
That's got to be tough for her.
It is very hard. She has to start and say, now what's your husband doing? It's like, well... ... And she says, lately he's been arguing that the earth doesn't spin or whatever, right? And then or whatever it is I'm on about right then. And then because this is what I call my actual work, you know. I mean, but almost all Antifa people look like these sort of hideous goons. No offense, Antifa people. You can't help it. You can't. And Black Lives Matter marches are just a parade of people twisted in body and mind. Yeah. Like, almost nowhere in our culture do you see large gatherings of beautiful, healthy people. It just doesn't happen.
This makes me think of that Reddit thread where all these guys were complaining that they couldn't open their bottles of Soylent meal replacement beverage.
I know.
And they were showing pictures of like their tiny, thin hand and wrist struggling and failing to open these bottles of Soylent. Soylent is a soy-based meal replacement drink popular among urban bugman type.
Also, the title of the movie Soylent Green.
Yeah, like
which was
who thought that was a good idea?
It's people. The hook, the punchline of that movie is that what they're feeding people, Soylent Green, is dead people they've recycled into food.
Yeah, and then somebody said, "Let's make a beverage called Soylent."
Let's make it that.
No, when first time I saw that, I knew it was a joke.
I thought so too.
This has got to be some kind of joke. Who would do that? But it's a real product you can buy.
I think maybe it has real people in it at this point. Who knows? Why would you name it that?
I don't know.
Anyway, but so. This again, because so this in Bappian metaphysics, there's another force, like we could call it, he doesn't use this term, but I coined it, like the yeast force maybe, which is constantly seeking a return to the muck, like to the primordial slime. Because that's the one and only place of true equality, which is what they're always talking about. Remember, the only way to make a forest equals with an axe.
Yep.
So this is a force, a spirit that hates life, that is anti-life. It's the spirit of the sludge, the yeast, the primordial soup, and it exists in eternal struggle with the spirit of the peacock and his brilliant feathers, or the jaguar and his supple muscles moving with grace through the trees, right? And I think given recent events, it's hard to argue that there isn't such a force, an anti-life spirit, or at least an anti-high life spirit that exists. And actually, this is maybe the default mode of life. Like, there's far more yeast on Earth than there are birds of paradise. There's far more sludge than magnificent tigers, you know?
Well, just look how much hate a person can get for just being healthy and beautiful and enjoying their life.
I know.
In public. Yeah. You can get so much hate for that. It really does kind of prove his point.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a point. Like, and so, but here's how the two are in conflict, because the high life, the path of the high life is Bat points out, sort of a path of leisure. Like, it requires time. The more glorious the animal, the more time and the more space it requires to reach its full potential.
Mm-hmm.
And so the strategy of the spirit of sludge has always been to overwhelm the higher forms of life with sheer numbers. It uses weapons like flesh-eating bacteria and mosquitoes and cancer. Like, that's the spirit. It's just so much just garbage. Like, bleh, bleh. And then the peacock has trouble, like, just spreading its wings in this muck. And since the Industrial Revolution, arguably, because infinite mortality has been reduced to zero, and this is a dark thing to consider, but let's consider it, many of the human specimens who were predisposed to that spirit of sludge, who would otherwise have died, have lived, and have created more of themselves, each generation incarnating more and more of the spirit of sludge than the one before. Now, that is a dark thing to consider, because you think like, oh, so it's bad. Like, if we do infant mortality to zero, then basically garbage genetics builds up, and then we get to this point. I don't know. It's a thesis. It's a thesis that has some evidence behind it at this point, maybe.
Well, you'd have to prove that infant mortality was higher in a higher distribution among the sludge sorts of people than among the peacock sorts of people, which I don't know that was the case. Right.
Well, I mean, so but the point is that we have reached, however we got here, we've now reached a critical mass of sludge men.
Right.
Of bug men who see nothing wrong living off a diet of literal bugs and living in literal pods, and who seek only, like, death motivated by the envy of the beautiful and the glorious, which they are not.
Yeah.
And you see this in their behaviors. There are a great mass of women on Earth right now begging us to let them not reproduce.
Yeah.
They're like, please, look, I'm going to roll in the sludge, right? That's my nature. I'm going to roll in the sludge of sex with random strangers and hookup culture and Tinder. But they're like, please do not make me have a child that results. Let me kill it. I do not want to. I am not fit to continue living. I am sludge. That's what they're really saying, you know? Which is dark, but that's sort of where their spirit comes. And while they're doing this, they're also on a constant rampage against the beautiful. Like, they're like, everybody's a beach body, they claim. Screeching out in anger if a thin, pretty woman is put on an advertisement instead of a ham planet.
Yeah.
And they shave their heads, and they get all sorts of piercings and weird tattoos to make themselves even more unattractive, to spoil whatever looks they did have. And the male targets of their rage, likewise, are always young and handsome. They're like lacrosse players, the Duke lacrosse players, or the frat boys, or swimmers, or quarterbacks. Like, they see these specimens of beauty, and the slug men and women resent that they either cannot have them or cannot be them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they end up, in their jealousy, they cut their balls off and become court eunuchs to politicians, which is what trannies are becoming. It's just the rebirth of the court eunuch. Or they dress up in like leather and prance down the street in grotesque displays of like filth and try to draw children into their tornado of STDs, hoping to destroy. Because they this is why the degeneration always targets children, like Jeffrey Epstein and such, because the innocence and beauty of the child they hate and want to destroy. Yeah, they hate the innocence and they hate the beauty. And what Bap is describing again is, this is my own spin on it, is maybe this is the biological side of the eternal war on heaven. Like maybe this is, if we could be just, I don't know, throw the Calvinists a bone, maybe this is like genetic Calvinism. Like you're born with a genetic predisposition to one or the other. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, it has to, the spirit has to meet, the rubber has to meet the road at some point, you know, and all these ideologies have to be incarnated somehow. Maybe. But as Bap says, it's like in your blood. You know, like maybe Bap would argue for a kind of biologically determined Calvinism. But the sort of person that imagines life in a windowless 8x12 New York apartment surrounded by condoms and fast food wrappers, and he says this is fine. Yeah. And then there are those
but I think the environment creates.
This is true. It's nature nurture argument. Like how much of one is the other.
I'm in this discussion. I'm going to be heavily into nurture, and I think that the environment that we are placed in creates our philosophy and our worldview.
Yes, I think that's a heavy component of it also, and Bap talks about that with the concept of owned space. Yeah, which is maybe the most important concept he brings up. I agree. It's central to the understanding of how one, because this is maybe how this alchemical process of changing someone it has the spirit of sludge to the spirit of life and vice versa could happen. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Bap says that reproduction in higher animals comes later. Like yeast just bam, 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 bam. And only sort of as an afterthought once it has reached the full development of its powers. Like you see cubs, maybe wolf pups, you know, or something. They're not interested in sex when they're young. They're interested in really for a while when they're adults. They're interested in like exploration, pushing the boundaries of their existence and exercising, developing their inborn powers to the fullest degree. They play hunt, they play fight, they run and they jump and they swim. They learn to navigate the world, and only after having done this, having grown into the sort of animal they were meant to be in full, that they think about reproducing, almost as like a side effect, like a natural expression of their powers and the life force that they have. It is no coincidence, then, that man, the highest life form, who takes the longest time to reproduce, or one of, almost long, does not do so in conditions where his inborn powers are not developed, and where all the space around him is what Bap calls "quote unquote" owned. Like, so a child or a young man seeks to develop himself the same way a wolfbutt does. He wants to run outside, explore, hunt small animals, wrestle with his brothers and his dad. As he grows older, he tries to engage in more daring feats, not as some say to show off to girls primarily, maybe sometimes, but rather just the enjoyment of his own development. He'll maybe jump off a high cliff into the deep river, or surf on the ocean, or hike the Appalachian Trail, or maybe get in a van and drive across the continent, living on what he can, because boys who grow up in such a way almost always reproduce later, for they are afforded the chance to become what they were meant to be in the blood. But by contrast, boys who never expanded, never had this opportunity to explore, or if they did, it was squashed by overprotective parents, the nanny state, they grew up playing simulacra of expansion. They explore not the real world and develop real skills, but they do it in video games. And they grow up into like a diminished character of themselves, like Pomeranians instead of wolves, And this was the saddest paragraph in the book, I thought. Bap says, when you put some kind of working dog like a terrier, even a cute Jack Russell in a city apartment, they will start to try to dig through the floor. This mode is inborn in them. They seek the development of their powers, and there are very few sadder things than to see an animal thwarted like this, playing at becoming itself, but reduced to a dull and useless acting. Mm-hmm. That is the modern human condition for so many people.
It is. Yep.
Men and women are playing at becoming themselves. They're reduced to dolls and useless. Women, instead of learning like real eroticism and seduction that is proper in a relationship, they turn to like manufacturing pornography. Yeah. Instead of nurturing and developing their mothering instincts as like a caregiver, they They do it on cats and dogs or in their job, and they always end up becoming like an overbearing Dolores Umbridge or an HR manager, or worse, like in politics, where any woman in politics inevitably views her constituency as like misguided, guided, and naughty school children.
Mm-hmm.
She does not develop into what she was meant to be, and so she becomes this sort of distorted, disgusting parody of it. And by the same token, men, having no opportunity to develop, become roided up buffoons, like aping masculinity, wearing like weird handlebar mustaches and tweed suits, or, you know, they take their divinely given desire to protect women and turn it into some parody where they're just simping for women constantly on the line.
Yeah.
And this is because, according to BAP, almost all of the modern world, the space is owned. Like in previous eras, you could go like 50 miles outside the city, even big cities like Rome, the heart of the empire, and the government basically didn't exist.
Yep. This is crucial.
Like, you could go and actually be. You could just be.
There was wilderness.
Yeah. And today, thanks to technology, the government takes on an almost omnipresent character with eyes and ears all around. Now, in point of fact, its omniscience and omnipresence is much more fantasy than reality. But it's a persuasive fantasy all the same. And BAP says the following. He says, chimp in nature never jerks off, but in captivity he does. What does this mean? And that is broadly true. Great apes and monkeys in nature are seldom seen masturbating. But in the jungle and the trees, they don't do it. But in captivity, in the zoo, in an ape habitat or whatever, it becomes common. And then you think, well, what does that mean for the state of our modern world? I mean, it's sort of obvious.
Yeah.
It's like human zoos. This degeneracy, therefore, we see like all these depraved sexual habits that proliferate among us now. Is it primarily the consequence of like an enslavement and a kind of entrapment?
Yeah, if you're living in an aquarium, you're going to be frustrated, and that frustration is going to be acted out in self-destructive ways.
Yeah. I think maybe it's a coping mechanism. Like I think really a lot of this behavior that we see is a like I don't have any experience with torture. I've never been to Abu Ghraib. I've never been a prison guard at Guantanamo Bay. Right? But I am told, it has been said, that people under torture, if it goes on too long, one of the ways they cope with it is to sort of go with it, as they lean into it, which is really disturbing. But they could begin to develop an affection for the torturer, and they also begin to get like sexually aroused by it. And I think maybe that's a way of like reasserting some sort of control over your situation. Like you're mentally reframing it as something not happening to you against your will, but something you desire and maybe even participate in.
Yep.
So you no longer feel abused, you know, and it protects the psyche, it protects the ego, but it keeps it alive, but it twists it. It makes the ego and the psyche grotesque. And it's sort of like why women sometimes develop affection for their rapists, you know, and I'm told that if you're the torturer and you see a prisoner getting into that point, he's done. You have to kill him. If there's nothing more can be extracted from him, it's just over. You can't get any worthwhile information, cooperation, any of that. They're just gone. And maybe that's what we're witnessing in society. People are in a constant state of stress, fear, and anxiety, living in owned space. And they're trying to like lean into it and assert some measure of control over their own existence by embracing the filth. I don't know, dark thought, but maybe that's so.
Well, no, I think it is so, and the own space thing is legit. I took my son out west, as many of you know. I've talked about it on an earlier show, but one of the reasons that I did that is because I wanted he and I to be able to get very far away from major cities and outside of the supply lines and control grids of industrial society.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really young, and we didn't get that far, spend that much time out there, and we will do more as he gets older. But part of that was just, we're going to go, and it was great because the national forests and national monuments were pretty much abandoned by the Park Service and the Bureau of Land Management. So you would go into these national monuments and there would be no one there. There would be a few people checking it out. There would be no rangers or officers, or they just left the gate open basically.
Mm-hmm.
And you were responsible for yourself. You went wherever you wanted. You did whatever you wanted. And it seems sort of trite, or it seems like it's not a big deal until you realize that most people, day in and day out, have zero ability to experience that sort of thing, even for a short period of time.
Yeah. I mean, people will go their whole lives and never experience that.
It's funny. The people that we do chickens with told me a story, and they said that they were raising these chickens. They were going to sell slaughtered chickens, like prepped chickens, to their friends and people they knew, and they started offering these chickens. And the number one question that came up was, are you going to sell me the chicken alive? Or will it be, like, they didn't understand that, like, no, we're going to raise the chicken, and then we're going to kill it, and then we're going to prep it and dress it for you, and then we're going to sell it to you. My point being, like, they were so used to those sorts of things happening outside of their world that the idea that somebody like them could take command of a living thing and transform it into food just blew, like, they didn't have a category to consider that, because all that stuff happened far away on some controlled space by some sort of expert.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the product of living in an aquarium, of a human aquarium.
It is a human, like, I had an epiphany moment when I was with this guy, and we were driving down the road, and this light had been out for a long time, and he said, I don't know why they don't fix that. And I said, well, have you called anyone and told them it was out? And he goes, huh? Well, they don't know it's out.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? Like, he just assumed
right.
Everything was, like, there was this omnipresent computer grid or something. I don't know. Like, they just knew. And I was like, that's not connected to anything, man. That's just, just call them, and then he called them, and they had to fix it,
Yeah.
But, like, they don't, people just, it's strange, but it is this human aquarium, and it's not good for you. I don't know what the solution is. But it is like it. And Bap said this quote. This is actually, like, this is him talking about. I mean, he's not a choir boy. It's in the name, pervert. Bronze's pervert, right? He says, quote, for this reason, like, he's like, I have always been attracted to filth and dirt, because something in me knew intuitively that only in the underseam of life as it exists today can you find the real lacunae, the holes where society's reach is limited or weak. I always sensed there was some real freedom in the blackest of red light districts among the whores and junkies, perverts and worse, with whom I've always chosen to take my dinners when I had the chance. I liked the stories they told me. Some showed me letters from delusional Spanish engineer who wanted to marry her. Another told me a story of miscarriage her friend had in old pervert's bathroom, and how they flushed it down a toilet and then its name written on a piece of toilet paper. It's in this world, and almost only in this world today, that you can start to polish the claws nature gave you, assuming it gave you any. And dark as that is, you can see the appeal. Like, if the options are to live as a Jack Russell Terrier trying to dig through the carpet in an apartment, or to go into the underseam where you could could sharpen those claws, some people will make that choice. Maybe a lot of people. But worse, I think, are the majority who try to live in both worlds. This does not work.
This leads into one of my main criticisms of Bap, is that his philosophy and his approach to life it's directly derived from his feeling of hopelessness. And so so he goes to the gutter for freedom because there's not hope in his mind for a good sort of freedom to be attainable in this life. And I think also he's realizing that he is going to get old and die one day. And I don't think his philosophy has room for that, frankly.
Well, no, he says he hates old bodies at some point.
Yeah,
and,
like
now he does believe in reincarnation, I think, in a way. Yeah. So yeah, whatever. But
when I say he doesn't have room for that, it's like when you get old and start breaking down, you just have to kill yourself.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's what some of the pagans used to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at least he's consistent. But I think a lot of what we're seeing, like, if people would just go be prostitutes and junkies, I think we'd be in a better world. It's like Christ was more comfortable with the prostitute than the Pharisee. because the prostitute and the junkie have made their choice. Like they've made a choice, either hot or cold, be one or the other. Right? But so many today, they choose a sort of popular pseudo-degeneracy, which is the worst of both worlds. It's like they want to live in their suburb, but also do shrooms and also have an OnlyFans and also participate in the Pride Parade, but otherwise be nicely groomed. And like, you can't have the picket fence and go to the chic cafe for espresso after spending an evening butt banging in a fursuit coated in ketamine. It doesn't work. Like those two, you become like just do one or the other. Like be a full degenerate. Like, because I think the
only way that you can live in the halfway is, like we've said, if you're living in a human aquarium. If you're in a totally controlled environment and like all your degeneracy is provided to you in safe little doses that won't destroy you but will keep you occupied, then you can have a foot in both worlds.
Yes, it's you're trying to rebel against it, but it itself is allowing you to do that. You're becoming like its most ardent defender because
the Matrix is like made of porn.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. If you're gonna do it, go full. Because I do think there's something in this idea of like left-hand pathism. Because if you were like really selfish, like let's say you followed selfishness to the end and you were honest about it, I think what you would come to is you'd say, what's actually best for me is if I love other people as myself. And because if I loved God with all my heart, and then that would actually be best. And that would, like, I think you would wrap around to that. Like, I think that's a little bit what happened to Solomon when he talks about in the Ecclesiastes how he pursued all the earthly pleasure and stuff, and then he. And maybe that's why you can be hot or cold, but the middle position, God spits you out, because it's like, look, if you just go one way, just pick a side and go. But these people that try to fence it, that you just become this twisted. I don't know. The honest whore is better than the person that pretends that they're one thing and then has this alter ego dark side. Like, people say we're over sexualized today, but that's not. People have no sex. The number of young people not having sex is the highest in American history, which is
super weird, but also makes sense with everything else we've been talking about.
It's terriers in an apartment humping pillows.
Yeah
It's the same thing.
Yep.
It's literally the same behavior. They're just humping pillows, because that's how the terrier feels. I don't. Anyway, we've probably gone on long enough. But BAP has it's a very good book. I encourage you to pick it up. It's not for people that are easily offended.
Yeah, it gets pretty gnarly in points.
But I'm not sure how much of that is some of it he's just doing for effect.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it he's not. I don't know. But it's a fun book. He's always been, in my interactions with BAP, he's always been very nice and stuff. And I think he's probably a good guy overall, but
he does seem like a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think that he's just. I think he's one of these people that's chosen a path, and he's just walking that path, and I think that will get him somewhere. I hope somewhere good,
But his criticisms of modernity are spot on, and probably one of the more important pieces of philosophy written.
Yeah, I agree.
In the last decade. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And his podcast is pretty fun too, but you got to pay for it. But whatever. So anyway, what should the solution be? Should we all go back to the steppe and just ride around on horses through the North American continent, sleeping in yurts? Maybe. I don't know.
It does. If you follow it out, though, it does descend in sort of a will to power kind of place.
Yeah, it does descend into a will to power, and that's why I think that's the heart of what we've been trying to do here is articulate, because like his critique is spot on. I think there's a problem in the solutions he offers.
Yeah, agree.
But I don't think that an alternative viable solution has been offered. That's what we've been trying to get to on this show. And we're working there, We're working to it. But remember, if you want to do this, because what you want is you need some of that unknown space.
Yeah.
But remember, my friends, the difference between an adventurer and homelessness is hygiene. Like
there you go.
You can live in a van or whatever, but just be clean.
Yeah. If you've never gotten out on the road once in your life and just had adventures and wandered around in the wilderness and not known how you were going to get out a time or two, you need to have that experience.
You do.
You do. It'll change. It really will change your life, and it'll show you the aquarium. By contrast,
it will show you and the aquarium is ever more expansive because the more time people spend in the aquarium, the less able they are to go out of the aquarium.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting harder and harder. Like when I was a kid, I could get out of the aquarium every afternoon if I wanted to. And I
remember you were sort of the crazy, like when we were in college, you would just go camping by yourself in the middle of the night. You'd be like,
I loved it. It'd
be like 8 p.m. and you're like, I don't think I'm going to sleep inside tonight. And then you just disappear. And then,
no, I had this great spot in the middle of the woods on this sandy bank. And I would go out there and I'd make a little fire and I'd just sleep on the sand. And a lot of times I'd wake up because a pack of coyotes was running right past me on the sand, chasing a rabbit or something. And just being out there I don't even know who owned the property. It didn't matter.
Right.
It wouldn't, had I known, it wouldn't have affected anything. I just took what I wanted out of nature and used it. And I lived there for a short period of time. And then I went back, and it was just such a beautiful time, whether I was with friends or by myself.
Yeah.
You can't put a price on it.
You were a very proficient camper. I don't know if you've kept those skills sharp.
Yeah, I can still do okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, you were you used to you would be like, when we go hiking, you'd be like, your pack is ridiculous. And it would be, because I would have like all sorts of, because I was always like, I'm not a big planner.
I saved Sumo's life one time. True story.
You did. Yep. And you did. And it's partly because my equipment was not good.
Yep.
And I didn't take much time to forethink about because that kills the spontaneity of it for me.
It does. You know, you're the jester in the group.
That's true.
And that's I grant you that.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, your skills were you were always, and that I think that was a very formative thing for you, and more people need to have that.
Yeah.
And
like it's not going outside is not just a hobby that you can pick from among other hobbies. It's like getting outside the aquarium and getting yourself connected to God's created order is vital for your development of your humanity.
Yes.
It really is.
It's like that meme. Have you seen the meme of Plato's cave and the people are at the bottom, and at the top, this caption is like literally just outside. Like the bottom is the people all looking at the shadows. It's like Twitter and Facebook, and then it was like literally just logging off and going outside.
Just go
outside. Then you're out of Plato's cave.
Yeah.
You know, it's So anyway, my friends, enjoy anime. Learn what is life, and I don't know, live long and prosper.
That's good. You tied it all together there.
I did.